أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Respected Sadr Sahib, all the office bearers of Majlis Ansarullah and all the brother Ansar and Khudam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. We are indeed very fortunate in this country that we have Khilafat amongst us. And I think, in spite of the fact that His Iqdas was not able to come to this Ijtima, but he very kindly and very generously inaugurated the Ijtima from us during his Friday sermon. And his message to Majlis Ansarullah is very clear. And this is the message that His Iqdas has been giving us for some time now. That is that if we are going to be good Ahmadi Muslims, then it is very, very essential that we spend our time in supplication to Allah the Almighty. And not only that we spend our time in supplication, but we should spend our time in congregational supplication wherever possible throughout the country. Now, by the grace of Allah, our Secretary Tarbiyat of the Jamaat makes a huge amount of effort to visit every Jamaat, every region, to try and encourage people in congregational prayers. And by the grace of Allah, we have started seeing some improvement. But I would say that so far we are still very far behind from the expectations of our beloved Huzur. Prayer is, as you heard Huzur Iqdas in the Friday sermon, saying that nobody, not even the prophets, are forgiven from even one prayer. And everyone who calls themselves a Muslim or an Ahmadi, it is obligatory upon them to make sure that they spend their time in supplication 5 times a day. Now, let's look at it in a bit more detail. It is about our mental attitude and being ready for supplication before we appear in front of Allah the Almighty. When we have to go and see a headmaster in a school, or a dignitary, or indeed we have to go and visit Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen Ayyad ibn Aziz, we spend a lot of time and effort in preparing for it. Those of you who have had mulaqat with Huzur, you spend your whole day preparing for that very short visit that you're going to have. And you psych yourself up and you wear your best clothes and you wear the best perfume and you make sure that you are going to be completely and truly ready to be in the presence of Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen. And yet, when we are prepared to go in the presence of a higher being, why is it that mentally we cannot come up to the same standard? Why is it that mentally we don't prepare ourselves in the same way? Why is it that, in spite of the fact that ablution is obligatory and preparation for the namaz is a very important part of that procedure, that we do not prepare in the same manner? Then you heard Huzur Iqdas mention that as the promised Islam said that our victory is going to be through supplication to Allah. It's not through the sword, not through any other means. But the victory has to be through supplication. And if we claim to be the chosen Jamaat, and if we say that, yes, we are those fortunate people whose elders and sometimes themselves made the supreme sacrifice, and our elders who accepted Ahmadiyyat, most of us sitting here are probably born Ahmadis, although I'm sure that there will be some who have taken bath themselves. But those who are born Ahmadis, you did not make that sacrifice. The true sacrifice was made by your elders. Those people who've suffered social boycott, those people who sometimes were boycotted by their own families, sometimes by their spouses, but their conviction to the true path was so solid that they sacrificed everything for that objective. We, who didn't have to change our religion, we were born as Ahmadis. Allah gifted this to us. And yet, are we prepared to make the same sacrifice that our elders made in the way of Allah the Almighty? Then comes the issue of developing our relationship with Allah the Almighty. The Prophet ﷺ said that sometimes when people stand to supplicate, it is as if they are going to pay tax to the king. And then don't do it out of love, but as an obligation. And if we work with that attitude, then how can we possibly win the pleasure of Allah? In order to win the true pleasure of Allah, we have to make a true connection with Him. We have to communicate with Him, we have to talk to Him, and He listens. You know, when we go to see Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, Ayatollah bin Aziz, we wish a kind word or a smile or something, and that fills us with huge pleasure that Hazur Aqdas has smiled on us. But we forget that Allah also smiles on us, and smiles on us day upon day. The fact that you have got good health in itself is Allah's blessing for you. It's only when you don't have that good health that you realize what a true blessing Allah has given you on this. So if Allah the Almighty is showering His blessings on you on a daily basis, then why is it that we cannot be grateful and thankful to Him? Our employer gives us a bonus, we say thank you 20 million times to Him. And yet, when Allah the Almighty is continuing to bless us in every aspect of our life, the fact that He gives you a decent and pious spouse, the fact that Allah blesses you with good, healthy children, the fact that Allah gives you all kinds of benefits. Especially in these countries, Allah has blessed people. You don't have any issue with practicing your faith, as in certain countries, in Pakistan and other Middle Eastern countries, it's difficult to practice your faith freely. We don't have, in the Middle East, we cannot have mosques where we can go and pray. And yet here in this country where we have freedom of faith, freedom of religion, freedom of every aspect of our life, we fail to exercise that freedom. And the reason for that is that we too have got caught up in the life of materialism. We are running after material things rather than piety and winning the pleasure of Allah. And if we are not careful, then we will fall into the same trap as Christians in this country have fallen into, where they do not feel that they require anything from Allah the Almighty. And they only visit the church on high and holy days or to get married. And other than that, they have no connection with their church. But Allah has blessed us with Khilafat. The whole world is looking for Khilafat. We know all the Muslim Ummah are looking for Khilafat. They want to come under one patronage so that they can be saved during this very difficult period that we're going through. And yet the true Khilafat has only been blessed with the Ahmadiyya Jamaat. Therefore it becomes essential that if we want to win Allah's pleasure, and if we want to communicate with Allah, and we want to develop a relationship with Allah the Almighty, then we supplicate to Him 5 times a day. And doing supplication in congregation means that the angels descend on those congregations. You get many-fold blessings when you pray in congregation. And in this country, you have the benefit of going and praying behind Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ayyad Talib Aziz. People come from around the world. I've known people who write to me and say, we want to come from Canada, America, Australia, and just spend a few days in the company of Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen so that we can pray behind him. They spend thousands of pounds to come here just for that one act of praying behind their Khalifa. And here in the UK, where we have absolutely no restriction, then we are not doing our duty if we are not taking advantage of the situation. Now, there are a lot of benefits of the prayer. Anyway, we know that. But when the part of the reason why we have different prayers during the day, or one reason, is that we can take time out of our very busy life to remember our Maker and thank Him. If we did not have that, and did not do it 5 times a day, then we would be taken in our busy life and we would have no thought for our Creator. So the constant break that we make allows us to think about Allah the Almighty. But then from that, when you supplicate to Him, and if you do it truly, remember that there are millions of people who supplicate to Him, but they don't necessarily win Allah's heart. I mean, the ISIS as well will claim that they pray 5 times a day, but they don't necessarily win Allah's heart, because with supplication you need piety, you need commitment, you need a clean and open heart. You need to make sure that you forgive everything and everyone when you go and supplicate in front of our Lord. But if we carry prejudice, we carry hate, we involve ourselves with deception, we involve ourselves with backbiting, how is it possible that on one hand you have been involved in a deceptive matter, and then the next minute you go and pray to Allah the Almighty, that Allah will forgive you? The precondition to making a relationship with Allah is your piety. You have to be Mu'min. That's Zurab that's mentioned in his Friday sermon. And to be a true believer, to be a true Mu'min, we have a very high standard to achieve. We have seen in our own lives elders who had that connection with Allah the Almighty. They sometimes would pray and they would tell you the result there and then and say, yes, this is Allah's will and this is what is going to happen. But we should ask ourselves, what is it that we're doing in order to develop that relationship with Allah the Almighty? And unless we bring positive change in our lives, unless we stop filling ourselves and our progeny with hate and prejudice against other people, unless we stop backbiting, unless we stop getting involved in deception of every kind, unless we earn an honest living and bring up our offsprings an honest living, then we are not fulfilling that condition where we can develop our relationship with our God or with our Maker. So, from Suzu's Friday sermon, each and every one of us has to reflect, what change are we going to bring in our lives? How are we going to make a difference to us and our children so that we can truly win the pleasure of Allah? Remember that we are here for a very short time on this earth. Time will go by very quickly, especially now that we are in SAR. It means that we have very little time on this earth now. But Allah has still given us an opportunity to make amends and win His favor, win His love. And each and every one of you will yourself become witness when you achieve that status. You will have a certain peace within yourselves. Your heart will tell you, will stand witness that yes, I have now been able to make my relationship with my Maker. Allah listens to you. Revelation is still going on. Allah sends you dreams, and if some people say they don't have dreams, it doesn't matter. Because sometimes Allah will give contentment to your heart, and that will be the fulfillment of your prayer. He will tell you that yes, your prayer has been fulfilled. Now, I have concerns that in this country, there are too many attractions for our children. And unless we attach them to the mosque, and I've said this many times, when we were young, our parents, not only me, but parents of all the children, we lived in Africa, in Kenya, they made it a habit that every Maghrib and Isha prayer had to be at the mosque. And then, one of the things you keep hearing is about the generation gap. I'm telling you how our elders dealt with that generation gap. My father used to take me and my younger brother to the mosque. We were half an hour away from the mosque, and we would walk to the mosque. And during that half a mile walk, he would tell us stories. He'd narrate to us stories of prophets, and there'd be a tarbiti angle at it. And look at, so many things were happening during that period. One, we were bonding with our father. Two, we were getting exercise because we were walking. And three, he was able to do our tarbiyat during that period exclusively because we had nothing else to do. There were no distractions. And then when we came to the mosque during Maghrib and Isha prayers, one of the parents would call all the children together and once again sit with them and involve them in other discussions relating to their tarbiyat. Now we've lost that. Our children now sit in front of screens all day. They don't go out and play. They play games which are harmful to them. Research has been done that the games that children play makes them aggressive and make them addicted to these games. They will sit there for hours and hours, totally oblivious of what is happening around them. And then I'm sure that some of you who have seen children, your grandchildren play these games, When you call them, you get an aggressive response because you have disturbed them in that very focused thing that they are involved with. So if we want our children to be good Ahmadi Muslims, first thing we have to do is connect them to the mosque. I remember when I was Sadr Khudam Lemdia, there were certain parents who I used to say to them, please bring your children to the mosques. And they'd say to me, Sadr Sahib, leave them alone. They have studies to take care of, and we don't want them to be distracted from their studies. Well, those parents and those children have now become highly educated. Some of them are accountants and some of them are lawyers. However, they have completely lost all contact with the Jamaat. They have no association with the Jamaat, they have no association with Nizam, they have no idea what an Amir is, what an Imam is. And they now have made a separate life for themselves away from the Jamaat. They've got married outside, they have children who have nothing to do with Ahmadiyyat. And the parents are now coming to me and saying to me, please Amir Sahib, help us because we have lost these children. It's too late, can't do anything now. So unless we from a very early age involve our children, we will find that we will lose them very quickly, especially in these countries. As I mentioned in my inaugural address, we live in an age of social media. And there is an age that we cannot remove ourselves from it. We are part of that. But whereas there are benefits, and social media has opened up doors for us in terms of tabligh that nothing would have been able to achieve beforehand. We are now able to reach out to those people on social media where we previously would not have been able to do so. So there are a huge number of benefits of the social media, but there are dangers inherent in it as well. And this is something we should make sure that our immature children who have immature minds are made conscious from a very early age. People, young children do things that they can harm themselves for the rest of their life. If they go out on the social media and say something, remember that whatever they have said will remain there forever. And nowadays, governments, employers, nowadays you see that there's a terrorist attack and the police within hours is able to trace everything. How do they do it? They do it through social media. They're able to understand very quickly who said what, where, and how. And through that, they're able to follow everyone. We are being watched every time. Every time you go and make a payment by your card, police will know where you've been. You're being watched every moment of the way. So we should be very cautious that we train our children that they don't do or say anything on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or whatever it is, social media they use, because anything said in haste or in the moment of weakness will remain there forever, and that will stay with us until we die. So we should be very, very careful that we make our children aware of this danger. And unfortunately, it has happened in the Jamaat. Certain children have said things on the social media which has cost them very heavily. So we should be very, very careful. Then the other thing that I'm concerned about is that by the grace of Allah, it's not a major problem, but it is a problem. That we have girls in our Jamaat who are becoming highly educated, and we do not have suitable rishtas for them. The boys, some of them, alhamdulillah, are also becoming educated, but there are some who, after education, they decide to get married outside the Jamaat. And sometimes when boys come educated, their parents, and in particular their mothers, they feel that they are now entitled to the very best of everything. And they go from home to home searching for their daughter-in-laws and rejecting young ladies. The damage that they're doing is incalculable. Can you imagine every daughter of us who gets rejected by someone who comes into their house, has tea and dinner, and then says, no, we don't like you? Can you imagine if it was your daughter, what effect that will have? But there are parents and mothers who are doing that on a regular basis. They're going from home to home. This is totally unacceptable. Then, because of media, the expectation of our children have grown so much that they have created ideals in their minds as to the type of partner they want. And that is not based on piety, but based on looks, on material things, and they want the very best of those things, not the fact that a woman is pious. Although Islam says that you marry a woman for her wealth, her beauty, but the main thing is piety. And if we, as parents, don't instill that in them, we will find that our children more and more will start drifting outside the Jamaat to find their partners. And the impact that it will happen on the Jamaat and the pious ladies in the Jamaat will be very detrimental. Also, as parents, we encourage our girls to become highly educated, which is a good thing, and we should do it. But the same effort always isn't made with the boys. I'm not saying across the board, I'm not trying to generalize here, but I'm saying that there is an element where they said, all right, the boy will be all right, even if he will find a suitable match, it's no problem. But the thing is that if, as a Jamaat, as a community, we want to be the very best in piety, then we have to bring our offsprings in that way. Then we have Waqf-e-Nau children. Parents sometimes, I feel, think that it's the responsibility of the Jamaat that they should take care of them. This was never been the case. When the scheme was originally launched, Hazrat Amir Mu'mineen Khalifat Masih Rabi Rahimahullah, he said that it was the responsibility of the parents to give them the very best academic and spiritual education, and then may offer them to the Jamaat. Now we have almost 5,000 Waqf-e-Nau children. Every household, I'm sure, has one or two Waqf-e-Nau children in every household. We have to now work out what we are doing to prepare them for their waqf. Some of them become despondent because they haven't been treated correctly from an early age or prepared, and then they will eventually drift away. Some of the loose leaves and branches will fall off, but it'll all be the pious and the pure and the ones who hold firmly will remain and flourish and serve the Jamaat. Now, a number of our children are becoming of age where they have to make decisions of their careers, or have started, they have finished their formal education and now entering into the stage of employment. Here it is very, very important that they should consult the Jamaat and they should seek permission before they seek employment. The Jamaat will guide them. Huzur Aqdas, in a lot of cases, children are going directly to Huzur Aqdas to get direction, which is excellent. But those who haven't done so and are in that position, they should seek. Huzur has given the Jamaat guidance on this, And we can guide those children as to what they should do in their professional capacity. So those parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts who have Waqf-e-Nau children, they should seek the Jamaat's guidance on this. But the primary responsibility still lies with the parents to bring them up both academically and spiritually as useful children for the Jamaat. So there are a number of challenges we have, but alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, our Jamaat stands out from the rest of the Muslim Ummah. I think I have mentioned to you several times that once one delegation went to see a very senior Secretary of State, and he said that, I know a lot of Muslim groups, but you're different. Because not only do you believe in your motto, love for all, hatred for none, and you open your arms to strangers, and you welcome everyone, and your warmth and kindness is there for everyone to see. But he said that there is another difference that I have found in your Jamaat, that you are also amongst the Muslim Ummah the most educated amongst them, and the most honest amongst them. And this is the way we are held in the outside community. People look at us and they say, this is an example that others should follow. You've heard a number of politicians come up and say, this is the true Islamic practice that others should look at and follow. But remember that if one Ahmadi goes and is dishonest or is dishonest in his or her dealing, that will have a reflection on the whole of the Jamaat. And the whole community will be affected by that one person. And if there's a group of them that makes it worse, then they will say, other people point fingers at it and say, why is this Jamaat any different from any other Jamaat? They're doing the same dishonest things as everybody else. So what makes them different? Why should we listen? People are only going to listen, not to your words, but your actions. Actions speak louder than words. This is a proverb. And it is going to be your actions which is going to matter. And those actions are very deeply connected with prayer. Because it is only through prayer that we will be able to improve ourselves, to become good human beings, to be decent husbands, decent fathers, decent grandfathers, and decent human being to the rest of the society. We have to bring positive change within ourselves if we're going to make a difference. We have to look at ourselves and say, what is it that I'm doing wrong so that I can bring about change in my life? Even if you start in small steps and say, today I'm going to deal with this and I'm going to make a change here because I think this is what I'm doing wrong. If you are taking benefits, for instance, which you have no entitlement to, then remember that if your children are brought up on those dishonest earnings, then what will be their condition when they grow up? They will then themselves say, our parents did it, what's the problem? They will go 2 steps further. So if you want your children to grow up in a pious and healthy environment, then please bring change to yourself. Because without that, we will not be able to change anything at all. Finally, we are very blessed that we have Khilafat amongst us. We should never take this for granted, as I mentioned earlier. Zuri Aqdas every Friday gives us guidance as to the way we can improve our spiritual and moral lives. Listen to him. Make sure your children, and sit in congregation at home and listen to the khutbah, and then get your children to repeat that. I remember when we were children, my father used to take us to the mosque and he would say, listen to what the Imam is saying. He said, you may not understand everything, but you will be able to understand something. And I remember then he used to ask us, what was it that the Imam said? And even though we couldn't verbatim repeat what was said, but the essence of what was said stayed with us. And this is why it's so important that they should listen to Huzur's khutbahs, that even if they don't verbatim remember everything, they will be able, in essence, to understand what has been said. So it becomes incumbent upon us that we should pray for the good health and long life of Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen, Khalifatul Masih, Talab al-Azriz, and his family, that may Allah bless him with good health, long life, and his family, and that we may continue to receive Allah's blessing through this great institution, and that we may continue to seek his guidance and prayers so that we can become good moral human beings in our lives. May Allah bless you all. I would like to finally thank and congratulate Sadr Saab and Zarul and his team for the excellent arrangements that they've made here. I've spoken to a number of people and they were all very complimentary about the arrangements. May Allah bless them and their whole team for the excellent work they've done. Allah bless you all. Please travel safe. Do not drive if you're tired. Make sure that you take stops on the way, and may Allah take you home safely. Allah bless you. Will you join me in silent prayer, please? Ameen.